first known rules of golf were drawn up in 1744 by the Gentlemen Golfers of Edinburgh in Leith, Scotland. Since then the game has changed dramatically. Golf courses, equipment, and not least the rules. So where do I go when I want to learn about the rules of the game today? Well, I go to the Golf Rules Questions podcast with Blakey and Roscoe, of course. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Golf Rules Questions podcast.
Welcome everyone to GRQ podcast number 55. We're back in action. I've got Stuart alongside me, helping me out. Well, not even more than helping me out, Stuart. You're part of the show now.
Thank you.
It's taken a while for us to get back on the airwaves or on the video waves. However, you may be seeing us. Life's been a little bit busy, so but we've had people calling out for where's the show, when are you coming back on air? So we've got to do right by the listeners and the followers and the connections that we have, and we always wanted to get back on, didn't we, Stu?
Well, I think you definitely wanted to get back on and talk to the fans again and keep the conversation going about golf rules and how important they are.
Yeah, and we've had plenty come up, especially in the last 3 or 4 months. So, it's been itching to get back on. So, where shall we start, Stuart? Where's a good place to start since we've got so much material?
Well, I think we can go back to the Players' Championship held recently, and there's a few situations there that I think are worth talking about, which of course you've posted on your YouTube channel. We can talk about each of those in turn if you wish.
All right, good start. And it was a good tournament for the Australians as well.
And incredibly, they seem to have a pretty good record there too.
Yeah, that's right. Cameron Smith ending up winning that tournament. So good on you, Cameron. Now, we don't have Roscoe with background bingo, but if anyone knows where the photo in the background of Stuart's is, they're more than welcome to send in a comment and have a guess. Pretty iconic course, pretty iconic region, that one.
It's a mecca, a golfing mecca.
There you go. That's the only hint you're allowed to give out. Now, what's the first one we're going to get into?
Well, let's do Lahiri. That's a pretty straightforward one. He's unplayable.
You want to
on the par 3.
You want to talk about the incident for those listening in?
Yeah, sure. So just a par 3, hit his tee shot way right into some really, really thick bushes. I think he exhausted almost his entire 3-minute search time with assistance. They found, I think, 1 or 2 other balls, which were then identified as not his ball. They eventually found it, clearly unplayable. And then I think there was a referee on hand to go through his options for taking unplayable ball relief under 19.2. And I think he's probably considered all those 3 options, and he eventually took one of those. And I was going to ask you about those options as well. But and he's eventually taken unplayable ball, hit his third, penalty of 1 stroke, then playing his third onto the green, which in the end was actually a pretty incredible shot to execute what he had to do to get over a fair few palm trees and trees.
Got over the palm trees, got over the lunch lunch tables, got over the spectators.
He definitely interrupted a few people's dining plans that day.
And I think he was looking for lunch himself. So got over the palm trees, put it on the green, but ended up making a double, which sort of really curtailed his leaderboard hopes or leader hopes. So so took the back on the line relief there, worked out a yardage from the flag that suited him the best, and then he got to drop it within the 1 club length, no nearer the hole of that reference point. So
now, with those relief options, we know there's 3 of them under 19.2. So you can obviously do what he did, go back on the line. You can do the lateral relief 2 club lengths from where the ball currently sits. And of course, the third option is previous place played. And I would think in order, if you went all around the world of golf, the order of which they would be taken up would be probably lateral, would be the most commonly used, followed by back on the line. And I think a distant third would be previous place played. And I think it's probably so infrequently used. I almost think sometimes players don't even think about it as an option. And they think about, why would I give up all that distance that I've just gained from that stroke to even bother going all the way back? I'm just wondering if that's ever been your experience, or even just socially, that people don't even think about, why would you go back all that distance to play another shot under the penalty of 1 stroke when I can drop it somewhere here, even though it may be a disadvantage to do so?
Actually, that's a really good point. I haven't had too many people call their ball unplayable and go back to their previous place played unless they hit it in the jungle. I'm not sure if you remember this, but Kevin Na, when he had his 16 on a hole, he hit his first one way right. And then his biggest mistake was trying to hit the next shot, because then, as you know, he's changed his last place played, or previous place played, whichever way you want to say it. So by changing his previous place played, he now doesn't have that option to go back to the tee. And in a jungle, you know, whereas sometimes you might be behind a tree and you can go back to the other fairway, or as Lahiri did, he sort of went back into the, what do they call them, concession stands or lunch area. He went back there, and, you know, a lot of holes are beside each other, and they can...
you almost drop on fairway.
Yeah, correct. So, and then just all you got to do is hit over a tree or hit around a tree or whatever it is. But with Kevin, you know, it was just back into the jungle. So back on the line wasn't really an option. The 2 club lengths, I think he even might have taken a 2 club lengths to try and get into a bit more of a clearing, but it was a real mistake. But yeah, it doesn't happen that often that people will choose 19.2A. They're more likely to choose 19.2C, as you said, and then B. And I don't know if it's an ego thing. Maybe, you know, I think you're definitely right about they've taken all this distance. They don't want to give up all this distance. I mean, if it was a penalty area, you know, you get that option. It'd be very rare to go back to the tee for a penalty area.
Yeah, anyway, I just thought it's probably an option that doesn't even pop into someone's head. About going all the way back.
I think you're right. If you're a referee going up to someone, obviously you're going to offer that option. They're probably going to look at you strangely or not even consider it.
But I remember that one of the things you taught me is, whatever you do, don't provide any sort of commentary on what they should be doing as a referee.
What you mean? Don't go up there and go, if I were you...
Correct, exactly.
If I were you, I would drop it within 2 club lengths. If I were you, I'd go back to the tee because you are rooted.
Or worse, I can't believe you're over here. It's a long way off, you know. Anyway.
Never. Don't say that unless you know the guy.
No, of course. I wouldn't be offering any commentary.
But yeah, what do we got now? I think that was a pretty straightforward. What do we got next?
Pretty straightforward. I think one that caught the player by surprise a fair bit, and I think it's an incredibly harsh penalty, but it was absolutely a penalty every day of the week, and that was Keegan Bradley on the 16th hole at the Players' Championship on that incredibly windy day, who was at the front of the green and hit a very, very long putt to a pin right at the back left. And when he's gone up there, incredibly windy, the flag sticks almost on 45 degrees. And he's gone up to mark his ball, and he's obviously paused for some reason. And in that pause, his ball has rolled further away from the hole by about 3 feet, not very far. His marker still sitting on the putting green. He then even consults with the other players. And this is what I found incredibly interesting, was they did actually discuss it for some time, back and forth a little bit. And he's going, no, I've already marked it. I've heard it so many times. When you've marked your ball on the green, you now own that position, own that spot. And the only way you can move off that spot is make a stroke or take relief. So I now own that spot. So sure enough, picks his ball back up, puts it back on the spot. I think he and then maybe lifted or something like that. But he's clearly then played from a wrong place. So I was very intrigued to see. Anyway, that's the scene. So you can talk about playing from a wrong place, but more importantly about marking your ball on the green and what that means.
Did put it back on that spot, thinking that because he'd marked his ball, and the rule states that it's a mark, or I don't even know if it says mark in there, but definitely says lift and replace. So as soon as you've lifted and replaced it, then it owns that spot. That was a weird one, because why would you put your mark down and then not pick the ball up?
So I spoke to, I was on a group trip last week and I brought this situation up, and that was actually quite a common response. Why would you not pick the ball up immediately?
Well, your hand's down there, right?
Yeah, it's right there.
Your hand is down there with the marker. You mark and lift. You don't mark,
pause,
take your hand away, have a look at it, and then lift.
It was very windy though. It was probably just bad timing.
Was it maybe, I don't know, maybe he was just putting the mark? No, I'm trying to find excuses for him, but I don't have any. So then he picked the ball up from where it rolled to and put it back, which is not correct. It was in play, moved by natural forces, play as it lies, because he hadn't marked, lifted and replaced it. Mm. And then, but the weird, not only the fact that he didn't pick it up straight away when he put the mark down, but even weirder was that he didn't call a referee in. Like, they had a discussion, and there would have been a referee there. I mean, we saw for the next one that we're going to talk about, Gary Young was around the 16th green, and so they'll have a referee around there because it's that sort of amphitheater type build up. Yeah, and so you're definitely going to have people around there with all the balls that go in the water on 17. So that, to me, that was the strangest. I mean, they pay for referees. The referees are always there. They know that. I don't know why he didn't call someone in.
Well, fair to say he probably won't do that again.
Yeah.
He probably totally understands that rule now. But I'm with you. I mean, the fact that he turned to his other players and they were talking about it for 30 seconds. And yeah, they're just, oh no, I'm pretty sure of this rule. And, I think he actually, from memory now, picked it up, as in my marker's already there. I'll just pick it up where it now lies. And then, of course, when it was his turn to play, then put it back where the marker was. But the video's on your YouTube channel anyway. But I just found it interesting that he didn't call for any assistance, but they're obviously pretty comfortable with their discussion. And yeah, he's obviously in the back of his mind, I've already put the marker down, so it's mine. It's my spot. There's nothing nothing can move that ball off that spot except for me making a stroke. So yeah, incredible. I don't think he'll do that again.
So then it was interesting. If you go on social media and you see all the Twitter and everything like that, and everyone was just criticizing the rule. Oh, why would you make the rule like that? It should be as soon as the mark is down, you've marked the spot. The ball's still in play. The ball's still in play until you lift it. Why should it be? I had no issue with the rule. Is that maybe I'm biased because I understand it, but and just agree with it.
As I also wrote in a commentary for another the group I went on with last week, I wrote that you hear that on a very windy day and you just got onto the green, it's in a precarious position. You'll hear someone go, "Oh, hurry up and mark it! Hurry up!" What they don't say is hurry up and mark it and lift it. So in the back of your mind is just mark it, and that's the key. But of course, we know the rule, that's not the case. Maybe that's just in the back of a lot of people's minds. As soon as that marker is down, you're okay.
I mean, which is not true. As soon as the mark is down, it's not true. It's the ball is still in play until you lift it off the green.
And Mr. Bradley now knows that all too well. Because as you said in your commentary, halfway through the fourth round or with 6 holes to play, he's tied for the lead. And he's incurred a 2 straight penalty in round 2.
Yeah.
For playing from a wrong place, wrong spot.
A 2-shot penalty meant a lot when it came down to the final leaderboard too. All good. We have another one on the 16th hole. This was really interesting. This one. Do you want to?
This is Daniel Berger.
Yeah.
So this is playing his second shot on the 16th hole, and he's just pushed it way right, gone into the water, and that's a red penalty area. And so he would have chosen to take lateral relief. And you're going to correct me here, to be 17.1D3 is the lateral relief option for a red penalty area. And of course, to take that relief option, you need to estimate the last point where it has crossed into that red penalty area. And that's where I think the fun began, because the other players in that group, I know Victor Hovland was one, I forget the name of the other, you'll know the other guy, who just disagreed with the point at which Daniel had estimated where it had crossed into the penalty area. So before Daniel obviously marked at his relief area and, perhaps put a tee in the ground to say, this is my reference point, I'm going to drop here. Obviously, there was some pretty vigorous discussion about where that point was for him to then proceed under that relief option and take relief. And then obviously a referee was called, and I'm interested in your perspective from a referee's perspective on that situation. But that's the scene anyway, that's what's happened. So there was quite a discussion for a reasonable period of time about where that point should be for him to take his relief.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's an interesting hole because it's a dog leg right to left off the tee. But then you'd almost kind of say that it's just kind of, because the green sticks out to the right, it kind of has this bit of a dog leg or burn left to right at the end. And then he's hit this left to right shot, and he's saying that it was a massive slice right at the end. So it's gone straight for, what he's saying is gone straight for about 200 meters, and then it's taken a left turn, gone straight, a right turn, about 25 meters out. And Joel and Victor were further left. And so you'd almost say, if they did have eyes on it, you'd almost say that they could see where it turned better than the actual person who hit the shot. Now, I'm not agreeing with, because, you've got to be there to see this, but I'm not agreeing with Victor and Joel necessarily, but it just, from that point of view, it would seem that they had a better point of view. And the whole, you gotta go and watch it. It's hilarious. Like, I've never taken a bad drop in my life. Wow. That I don't even know. It just got so defensive. Yeah, it's almost like he was guilty because of that. Yeah.
Okay, so you're a referee and you're sitting on the 16th hole, you're at the back of the green and you're chatting to someone, you didn't see them playing up, and you're called, hey, there's a situation just out, just along the 16th hole, and you rock along and Daniel starts talking to you and says, oh, look, I've gone into the water, I think it's crossed the edge of the penalty area here, and then all of a sudden Victor or Joel chimes in, yeah, but it didn't cross there, it crossed back there. What's your next step? You've got these 3 players in the group. So I'm interested in your perspective now about how do you then tackle that situation when you've clearly got the player, but then you've got one of the 2 other players, one of which is his marker. And how do you tackle that? What's your next sort of conversation? What's your next question you would ask the players?
It was interesting. I would go up and say, well, give me the facts. Where'd you hit it from? Where'd the ball actually end up? How much did you cut it or slice it, or was it a straight shot? Where did it sort of start? If it was, being that it was 2-on-1, I'd tend to more to side with the 2 rather than the 1. they don't really have anything to gain apart from the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they had hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars anyway. But they don't really have anything to gain by having, no player sort of wants to get into a bit of an argument, but especially, the other members in the group, it's so easy just to say, it would have just been so easy to say, yeah, Daniel, that's fine, whatever. And then afterwards go, oh, that was terrible. It didn't drop. That's more likely what would happen, human behavior. So I'd probably be more side with the two. But if it was one-on-one, that would be quite tough, because then, you basically, I'd probably be biased. I'd probably be like, oh, not do I like that person better, but just what are my previous dealings with those people? And if you hadn't had any previous dealings with them, you hadn't heard anything about them, you just sort of go, okay, well, the likelihood is this, and let's go for that spot. I mean, you're really just trying to go in the middle between where they each say it is. It was just the fact that it burned round to the left, round to the right, left to right, burned round to the right, that any sort of more turn, or, it was accentuated by extenuated. That might be an either. It was extended by the fact that it moved round to the right. So, whereas a meter back might have actually ended up being 2 meters, a meter back, more turning, slicing, might have actually meant 3 or 4 more meters further back crossing. So that, whereas if it was the other way around, it would be a lot easier to distinguish where the crossing point was.
And of course, the commentary on the day were doing all their top tracer technology presented by whomever, and showing the red line, and they're making their own assessment based on what, even that's not definitive. But I'm wondering, in a lot of sports now, from a video evidence perspective, want to get it right, and they're prepared to wait a little bit of time to just ensure the call is correct. But in your situation there on the ground, if you were that referee, I mean, how much longer do you have this conversation for? I mean, you've got a group sitting back midway through this on the 16th fairway, waiting to hit to that green, being held up as well. How long do we have this discussion for? Because it's Daniel saying this, the other two are saying this. You may have consulted, they may have, watched the video from somewhere else in the office somewhere. How are you mindful in the back of your mind about, I really need to wrap this up pretty soon?
Oh, absolutely. I thought it dragged out a little bit too long. I mean, do you want to upset the player? Well, sometimes that's part of being a referee. Is to try and make the right call. I mean, at the end of the day, as Gary said, he wasn't there. He didn't see anything. He needs to come in and decide between the facts that have been given to him by both sides, which is an extremely hard thing to do. You just want the players to sort it out because they were there, they saw it. Now, it was crazy to me that Sawgrass, the Players' Championship, is like got the most video cameras, got the most footage, and yet they missed this. Or they only had one view of it, or possibly two. They didn't have an overhead blimp view of it or anything like that, which is what you sort of were expecting but it just goes to show you can't have video cameras everywhere. You're trying to wrap it up. I thought it went on a little bit too long, and you just, he was obviously, Daniel wasn't very happy, but how he thought it crossed way up there is just beyond me. I have no understanding of this 4-iron or whatever he hit that went straight for 200 and then took a right turn into the water, like literally a 90-degree turn into the water.
I'd also think at that level, if it was me playing and I was to able to gain another 50 metres by my reasonable judgment, but it should have been 50. That's a big difference to me. But I think at that level, I think they're that good that doesn't matter whether he's 100 out or 150, he's still going to probably put it on the green.
Yeah.
Or be very close to it. Not a huge disadvantage to be 50 metres back. To me, it probably would be, but not to them.
Yeah. I mean, it was a tricky pin position stuck out there on the right. He had to play for the middle of the green and hope the slope brought it down. So he was trying to get as close as possible. So maybe it did make a little bit of a difference for him, but they are the best in the world, but it obviously still affected him. But yeah, very, very interesting. I mean, and if you had two players, what do you say? Well, I would say split the middle and go in the middle, unless it was really, unless you had prior knowledge about the characteristics of the people who were playing.
No names. Okay, good.
Right, we'll move on from that one. Okay. Yeah, I believe you have a situation that happened last week in your group.
Yeah. So I contacted you at the time about this, and of course you knew the answer straight away. Of course, expect nothing less. It was just simply it was a good situation because I encourage this amongst people to proceed under, we know Rule 20 is about resolving issues during a round, and the old 20.1C3 is playing two balls and stroke play when you're not sure how to proceed. And I don't think it happens enough at club level. And we had a situation last week with a ball that was pushed long on the 18th hole past the green, and the player was unsure whether it would have been out of bounds or not. So they've played a provisional ball, which has landed just short of the green. They've got up to the original ball and found it, and then gone, well, I'm actually still not sure whether this is out of bounds or not. It was right next to the pro shop, next to a cart path. There were some stakes, but it wasn't clear where the next stake was. He says, I'm really not sure whether this is OB or not. I'm going to play two balls. I'd actually stressed on the guy, impressed upon the guys, just play two balls. It's better than playing from a wrong place. And you get a few extra practice shots, right? So play your two balls. And sure enough, this player did. And because of the very rules the situation revolved around whether the ball was out of bounds or not, well, he had played a provisional ball on that very basis of whether that was going to be out of bounds or not. So the question came up about he was going to play two balls. Could he use that provisional that is actually sitting just short of the green as the second ball under 20.1C3, under playing? Because when you read 20.1C3, it talks about, you've got the original ball and then you play a second ball. Well, here we've got a case where the second ball's sort of already on the course. It's already sitting there. It's already been hit. So whether you could proceed with that provisional ball as the second ball under that rule. And you can tell us the situation or what the ruling is, or what the interpretation is for using a provisional ball as the second ball under that rule.
Yeah, well, I mean, the rule states a second ball played under this rule is not the same as a provisional ball under Rule 18.3. So what that's saying is you can't drop a ball. You can't drop a ball as a second ball and say this is a provisional.
Right.
But you can play a provisional as the second ball. So it's the interpretation is that the reverse isn't true. I mean, I just really like this was in the old decisions as well. So that's why I remembered it. But I don't think I've ever actually seen it or heard of it happening. And but you'd think that it would happen more. Well, I mean, if a committee sets the course up properly, it should never happen. But you'd think it would happen more. Remember that YouTube video we had with, who was it? The guy, and it was just on the out of bounds. But they got a referee and they used string to determine that it was out of bounds. But he had hit a provisional, I think, straight down the middle of the fairway, as all provisionals go. And then so they made the ruling there, but that could have been the case of where the referee wasn't there, so they played the two balls. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it just makes sense. Like the original ball, you don't know whether it's in or out. Your only other option is to play, if you're playing a second ball, is to play under stroke and distance, which basically that provisional is exactly what stroke and distance is. That's right. So, why not just use that as a second ball? It just makes perfect sense. And
makes perfect sense. I agree.
Interpretation 20.1C 36/6 is the one that tells us. So
it made a lot of sense. Yeah, it made a lot of sense.
Really cool to actually hear it happening.
Yeah, but the fact is that provisional ball has been played on that very basis of why you're proceeding with two balls. I mean, they're related. Not as if you're dropping out of GUR and you've already a provisional. That would be unrelated.
Now, this is an interesting question because you obviously, it happened. You got back to me, or you asked me about it, but this was way after the fact. Like, it's not like you can just ring a hotline and say,
not yet.
That's right. This is a live situation. I mean, you kind of can, but who knows if you do get an answer or not. There are bodies that are available to call, but who knows if they might be busy. They might be on holiday. So then you've just allowed it in the back of your mind where you're thinking, have I done the right thing? Have I done the right thing?
So what ended up happening was I was effectively the scorer. I mean, I was getting all the scorecards in and effectively the committee in that sense for the day, as I was all week. And as he did the right thing, in my notes, I said, you got to do it after the uncertain situation arises before you make your next stroke. And even if you've got to nominate a ball, and even if you score the same score with both balls, you still need to report the facts to the committee. So that's exactly what he did when he handed in his card and he explained it all to me. And my immediate thought was, why could you not use that provisional ball as the second ball? I couldn't see a reason why it wouldn't make any sense. And, I know the rules are very specific, but one of the things, I think the rules make a lot of sense as well at times. So I've gone back to what would I think an educated guess, what would the rules allow? And my immediate thought was, I couldn't see why you couldn't use that provisional ball as the second ball. And that's what he did. It ended up, it was a stable for a round. One of the balls wiped anyway. The other one scored a point. But that was not, it wasn't a stroke round where he came in with an 8 and a 9 or something like that. But it just made a lot of sense. And then I've actually then gone to 20.1 to read about it, got in touch with you, and you've gone, bang, there's the answer, of course. And okay, good, that makes sense.
Was the ball in bounds or out of bounds?
It ended up being out of bounds.
Okay.
And that was also part of the situation because he's right next to the members' lounge and the balcony, and the guy's looking down, mate, that's out of bounds, And he found out later that was the club president.
Oh, right.
Who'd been there for X years and knew exactly that it was out of bounds. So it ended up being out of bounds, but it wasn't.
That brings up an interesting situation. If someone tells you that your ball was out of bounds, have you now hit a wrong ball?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I know known or virtually certain doesn't come down to this particular rule, but I think it comes down to, it'd be the same as another player almost saying, mate, I think that's out of bounds. Yeah, but he may not know any more than you.
Well, I think also just having a real quick look at it, 20.1C3. I mean, if you're uncertain, even if someone, unless it's a referee or committee member.
You're correct. Yeah.
If you're uncertain, you're always allowed to play the two balls in stroke play.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Unless a referee's standing there saying, no, that's out of bounds or it's in play.
And then even then, Yeah, that's interesting. If a referee
That's another
says,
conversation then.
yeah, that's another conversation. If a referee says,
And then it's proven out later to be wrong.
that's right. It's a no play zone. You must take relief.
And whether it can be corrected in
And you
time.
go, no, I reckon it's just normal GUR. I'm going to play it as it lies, and I'm going to drop one under the free relief option or whatever. And the referee's going, no, you can't do that. And you go, no, I'm going to do it because I don't agree with you.
Right.
You'd have to be pretty ballsy to know your rules.
I would think so. Yes.
And then the referee's just saying, no. And then would they penalise if they're playing a wrong ball? if I mean, on both situations, if you turned out to be right, well, surely they couldn't penalise you for playing a wrong ball. But if you turned out to be wrong, could they then also penalise you for playing a wrong ball? Might have a think about that one. Right, I think that's a good wrap up so far, Stuart. A good comeback on the comeback tour.
Blakey is back.
But Golf Rules Questions podcast is back. It's whether it's me or someone else, and you obviously joining. It's early morning here in Melbourne, Australia, and we're both here. So maybe if we do it, obviously anyone who was watching on YouTube will see that I've lagged the whole time. We should possibly do this live in person, Stuart, and then we won't get the lag. That would be good. But I hope everyone's enjoyed episode 55 of the Golf Rules Questions podcast. And if you have any questions, shout it out, and we hopefully will get it on the podcast. Golf Rules situations happening all the time. We've definitely got some more coming up as well. We've got stacks have been happening, and got stacks of videos to get out as well. So, and if you haven't subscribed to the Drop Zone yet, I think what episode, version issue?
32 this week is coming out.
32 this week. I have to really thank you for being a big motivator and pusher of that, because I've wanted to do a weekly newsletter, but it just takes time. Everything takes time. It
does take time. Yep.
Everything takes time these days.
Got to give the fans what they want, though, Blakey.
Yeah. So if you want to subscribe to the free newsletter, the Drop Zone, just send me an email, golfrules.questions@gmail.com, or just send me a comment somewhere, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok there, Twitter, anything. Just send me a comment. I'll stick your email in there and get you subscribed to the Drop Zone. Any further comments, Stuart?
That's all good. Good to be back.
Yeah, that's right. And without rules, there is chaos.